Let's get right into it. Number 10. The Mandela Effect. Ever had that uncanny feeling you remember something completely different from how it actually is? Like, you vividly recall a certain scene in a movie, a specific lyric in a song, or even a historical event unfolding in a particular way, only to have the cold, hard internet facts slap you across the face with the truth. Welcome to the Mandela Effect. Named after countless people remembering Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, despite him, being released and becoming president. It's not some grand conspiracy where reality itself is glitching out, although that would be far more entertaining. Instead, your brain, in its infinite wisdom and occasional mischievousness, is simply filling in the blanks. We're talking about a memory, a snippet of information that has been altered, distorted, or completely fabricated over time, often reinforced by social consensus. It's like your internal hard drive got a corrupted file, and instead of telling you it's broken, it just decided to invent a new, equally plausible to your brain, anyway version of events. So, the next time you're absolutely convinced that the Berenstain Bears were spelled Berenstein, just remember, your memory isn't a perfect recording device, it's more like a highly imaginative storyteller with a penchant for making things up. Number 9. Source amnesia. Imagine someone tells you a truly scandalous piece of gossip. You're captivated, you're aghast, you're ready to spill the tea yourself. A few days later, you find yourself recounting this juicy tidbit, but for the life of you, you cannot remember who told you. Was it Brenda from accounting? Your eccentric Aunt Susan? The random person you bumped into at the grocery store while reaching for the last bag of kale chips? This delightful little brain glitch is called source amnesia. It's when you remember a piece of information, a fact, a story, or even a skill, but you completely forget where or how you acquired it. Your brain, in its infinite pursuit of efficiency, or perhaps its infinite laziness, decides that the what is far more important than the who or where. It's like your brain is a meticulously organized library that suddenly decided to throw all the index cards in the air. You've still got the books, sure, but good luck remembering which shelf they came from or who donated them. This is why eyewitness testimonies can be so notoriously unreliable. You might vividly remember a red car speeding away from a scene, but whether you actually saw it or just heard someone say it was red can become a blurry, interchangeable mess. Basically, your memory is playing a never-ending game of telephone with itself. Number 8. Misinformation Effect. You're watching a true crime documentary, glued to the screen, absorbing every detail. Later, you're discussing it with a friend, and they mention a detail that you swear wasn't in the documentary, except it was, or maybe it wasn't, but their confident assertion made you think it was. This, my friends, is the misinformation effect. When post-event information contaminates your memory of an original event. It's not that you're intentionally lying or even consciously making things up. It's that your brain is incredibly susceptible to suggestion, especially when it comes from a seemingly credible source or is repeated often enough. Think of it like this. Your original memory is a pristine, hand-drawn map. Then, someone comes along and scribbles new roads and landmarks onto it with a permanent marker. Now, when you try to navigate using that map, you're not sure which lines were original and which were added later. This is precisely why leading questions in a courtroom are a big no-no. Ask a witness, did you see the broken headlight? Instead of, did you see a broken headlight? And suddenly, your brain might conjure a broken headlight even if there wasn't one to begin with. Your memory isn't a locked vault, it's more like a highly suggestible intern trying to complete a report based on whatever the last person told them. Number 7. Confabulation. Ever been caught in a situation where you're telling a story, and as you're speaking, you realize you're embellishing, filling in gaps, or even outright inventing details, not out of malice, but because your brain just insisted those things happened? That's confabulation for you, the brain's rather flamboyant way of filling in memory gaps with fabricated, misinterpreted, or distorted information, all without any intention to deceive. This isn't lying, it's more like your brain's autocorrect feature going rogue. It despises a vacuum, especially a memory vacuum, so it just whips up some plausible to itself narrative to make sense of things. This is particularly common in people with certain neurological conditions, but we all do it on a smaller scale. You might remember exactly what you had for breakfast last Tuesday, even if you're pulling details from a typical Tuesday breakfast routine rather than a specific memory of that Tuesday. Your brain, bless its overachieving heart, would rather invent a coherent story than admit it has no clue. It's like your internal narrator is desperately trying to keep the plot moving, even if it has to invent a few side characters and plot twists on the fly. Number 6. Cryptomnesia. Imagine spending hours toiling away, crafting what you believe is a truly original idea for a song, a story, or even a brilliant new marketing slogan. You feel like a creative genius, a visionary. Then, lo and behold, you discover that the exact same idea, word for word, note for note, already exists. You didn't plagiarize intentionally, you genuinely believed it was your brainchild. Welcome to the wonderfully awkward world of cryptomnesia, a phenomenon where a forgotten memory resurfaces but is mistakenly attributed to one's own original thought. Your brain, in its infinite capacity for mischief, has essentially pulled a fast one on you. It's like downloading a file, renaming it, and then completely forgetting you ever downloaded it in the first place, assuming you created it from scratch. This isn't about conscious theft, it's about a failure of memory source monitoring. You remember the content, the catchy melody, the clever turn of phrase, but the context of where you encountered it has vanished into the ether. It's why sometimes, after a long brainstorming session, you might suddenly come up with a solution that you actually heard someone else mention days ago. Your brain, apparently, thinks borrowing is perfectly fine, as long as it forgets who it borrowed from. Number 5. Imagination inflation. You know that old saying, seeing is believing. Well, sometimes just imagining is believing, especially when it comes to creating false memories. Enter imagination inflation, a delightful little trick your brain plays on itself where simply imagining an event happening can increase your confidence that it actually did happen. Think about it. Someone asks you if you remember a specific, somewhat mundane event from your childhood, like dropping your ice cream cone at a carnival. You genuinely can't recall it, but then they get you to imagine it in vivid detail, the sticky sensation, the disappointed sigh, the ants swarming. The more you visualize it, the more real it feels. Suddenly, you're not just imagining it, you're remembering it. This isn't some sinister plot, it's just your brain being a bit too suggestible. The act of vividly imagining something activates similar neural pathways as actually experiencing it, blurring the lines between what was real and what was merely a mental movie. It's like your brain can't tell the difference between a high-definition documentary and a brilliantly produced fictional film. So, next time you're trying to recall a past event, be careful how much filling in the blanks you do with your imagination, or you might just create a new, entirely fictional past for yourself. Number 4. Schema theory errors. Your brain, in its relentless pursuit of efficiency, loves a good shortcut, and one of its favorite shortcuts is something called a schema. Think of schemas as mental blueprints or frameworks for organizing and interpreting information. You have a schema for restaurant, classroom, birthday party, and even first date. These schemas contain all the typical things you'd expect to see or do in those situations. Now, here's where the brain error comes in. When your brain tries to recall an event, it doesn't always retrieve every single individual detail. Instead, it often retrieves the relevant schema and then fills in the gaps with typical, expected information from that schema, even if those details weren't actually present in the original event. So, if you're asked to recall visiting a doctor's office, you might remember seeing magazines in the waiting room, even if there weren't any, because magazines in waiting room is part of your doctor's office schema. Your brain isn't trying to deceive you, it's just being a bit too helpful, assuming that if it should have been there, it was there. It's like your memory is a barista who, when asked for a coffee, automatically adds sugar and cream because that's how most people like it, even if you just wanted it black. Number 3. The sleeper effect. Ever found yourself suddenly believing a piece of information that you initially dismissed as complete nonsense, only to later forget where you even heard it? Or perhaps you recall the information, but you've completely forgotten that the source was, well, entirely untrustworthy. Congratulations, you've experienced the sleeper effect. This is a phenomenon where a persuasive message, initially discounted due to a low credibility source, becomes more persuasive over time as the memory of the source fades faster than the memory of the message itself. Imagine a really outlandish health claim made by a celebrity chef with no medical training. Initially, you roll your eyes and dismiss it, but weeks later, you might find yourself repeating that claim as if it were gospel, having completely forgotten that it came from someone whose medical expertise extends only to perfectly plating a souffle. Your brain, in its selective amnesia, prioritizes the what over the who. It's as if your brain has a very short memory for unreliable narrators, but an exceptionally long one for questionable content. So, that dubious diet tip you heard from your cousin's conspiracy theorist uncle, it might just become your new health mantra, all thanks to your brain's peculiar archiving system. Number 2. Retrieval-Induced Forgetting. You're trying to remember the name of that actor who was in that movie. You know, the one with the thing. And as you desperately dredge your brain for this one specific name, you inadvertently make it harder to remember other related information. This, my friends, is retrieval-induced forgetting, a surprisingly common cognitive quirk where the act of retrieving some memories actually inhibits the recall of other, related memories. It's like your brain, in its effort to be super efficient, decides to temporarily suppress information that isn't immediately relevant to what you're trying to recall. Think of it as a spotlight. When you shine that spotlight on one particular memory, everything else in the surrounding area gets thrown into deeper shadow. So, if you're trying to remember the capital of France, Paris, by the way, the very act of focusing on Paris might make it momentarily harder to recall the capital of Germany. Your brain is essentially clearing the mental desk for the task at hand, but it's a bit overzealous with its tidying. This isn't a sign of a failing memory, it's more like your brain's internal search engine is so good at narrowing down results that it sometimes accidentally deletes the other tabs. It's the ultimate irony. The harder you try to remember one thing, the harder you make it to remember anything else related to it. Number 1. Suggestibility and Interrogation. This is where false memories can get truly terrifying. Human memory, as we've established, is not a perfect video recording. It's incredibly pliable, especially under pressure or repeated suggestion, and this is never more evident, or more concerning, than in the context of interrogation. The power of suggestion, especially when combined with leading questions, social pressure, or even just repeated questioning, can literally implant false memories. Imagine being questioned about an event you barely remember, or perhaps weren't even present for. If the interrogator consistently suggests certain details, or if they present evidence that aligns with a specific narrative, your brain, desperate to make sense of the situation and perhaps to please the questioner, can start to build a memory around those suggestions. People can be led to remember crimes they didn't commit, details they never witnessed, or even entire events that simply never happened. This isn't about malicious intent from the individual, it's a testament to the sheer fragility and reconstructive nature of memory itself. It's why wrongful convictions based solely on eyewitness testimony are so tragically common, and why proper, non-leading interview techniques are absolutely crucial. Your memory isn't just suggestible, it's practically a blank canvas waiting for someone with a confident voice and a plausible story to start painting. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.